Good point. So I'm going to make a statement here that could be controversial. Vaccines is just one part of the puzzle. It's the most significant part of the puzzle, which is just one part. If anyone in my family would tell you, if they asked me about the vaccine and they got the vaccine, I said, don't stop wearing your mask in public. Follow the same protocol that got you here before you got the vaccine. And if you continue to do that, then we can stop this virus in its track.
Like, subscribe, and share to Voices of Linden TV.
Welcome to another edition of the Let's Talk Show. I'm your host, Andrew James, and today I'm pleased to have with us in studio via Zoom a few friends from Guyana who's going to be talking about the COVID vaccine under our umbrella of self-care and health. I am pleased to introduce Dr. Lawrence Benjamin, Michelle Moseley, and Ryan Jacob. We'll just jump right into it. Dr. Benjamin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind sharing with the group, please?
Hi, thank you, Andrew, and thank you all for listening to this very informative, hopefully very informative show. My name is Lawrence Benjamin. I was, as Andrew mentioned, I was born in Linden. I attended Mackenzie High School, and I've been living in Canada for the past almost 25 years. The reason why I'm on this show is because I think that I'm in a position where I can share some information regarding the topic, which is vaccines, and they'll tell you a little more about my background, which is relevant to this topic. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, so I've worked with major pharmaceutical companies and healthcare companies for the last 18 years here in Canada. My current role is in drug safety and drug quality and the regulatory relationship with the regulatory authorities here in Canada. Previously, before I move into my current role, I was director of drug safety for about just under 4 years here in Canada, which is the department that is responsible for ensuring that Canadians receive safe drugs. And that when I said drugs, I mean everything from over-the-counter medication all the way to cancer treatment, and of course, vaccines. My current role is Director of Business Operations for our Quality, Regulatory, and Safety Department, drug safety. So I am here to engage in a conversation with my fellow colleagues, just to set some of the records straight, more or less, or to provide you with factual information regarding the vaccine. So thank you.
Welcome aboard, Dr. Benjamin. I'll now move over to Michelle Moseley, who's no stranger to the show. Ms. Moseley, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
All right, thank you very much for having me, and I'm really glad to be here with Dr. Benjamin and Mr. Jacobs. I think it's an important conversation to have. As you know, I'm in finances, and one of the things that I've always kind of advocated for is your human capital. With human capital, we need to have some well-being. And this ties into this COVID pandemic, just like everything else, every other illness on the face of this earth. So I have a big interest in making sure that everyone understands how this impacts your human capital, which of course means it's impact your economic viability. I've been in Canada for about 26 years, and I've worked within the financial services industry pretty much for all of those 26 years. And today I'm really glad to be here having this conversation. It's very important.
Welcome aboard, Michelle. It's so nice to catch up with you again. I'll just jump to Mr. Jacob. Mr. Jacob, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please, sir?
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew, and to all the guests. My name is Ryan Jacob, Minister Jacob, they call me. I'm pretty much, I would say, author, philanthropist. My passion is to do mission work, you name it, in terms of traveling and helping. I'm, of course, minister of the gospel. And yeah, so that's what I would say.
Welcome aboard, Mr. Jacob. It's so nice to see you after such a long time. We'll just get right into it. My first question is going to be going towards Dr. Benjamin. Dr. Benjamin, can you tell us a little bit about COVID vaccine safety through your own lens, please?
So, thank you. COVID vaccines. So, we are living in a time where we have technology, we have know-how. Vaccines has been around for more than 100 years. And over that time, we moved from the early vaccines, which were technically giving you small doses of a virus to develop immunity, all the way to the newest technology, which is mRNA technology. And the mRNA technology is the latest platform for vaccines, and that's really transformed vaccine safety and also vaccine efficacy, which is how well they work. So let's talk about the vaccines in general, and then I will break them down into the various type of vaccines. So the vaccines in general, the vaccines that were created for COVID in general they were done with the resources of the entire planet focusing on delivering these vaccines, because as you know, the COVID pandemic stopped the entire planet. And so governments, pharmaceutical companies, scientists, everyone pooled their resources to develop vaccines to get us back to normal. That is to stop the pandemic. And when that happened, when humans come together to do something, we usually are very effective, and it's a beauty to watch. So the vaccines that came out of that process are possibly some of the best, let's say, solutions or technology solution to treat a pandemic that we've ever had. So let's start with the mRNA vaccines, because those are the ones that are the topic of most of the discussion. The mRNA vaccines are vaccines that were developed specifically for the COVID virus. That said, the platform on which they were developed started since in the early 90s. So think of the mRNA vaccine as let's say you have a chassis for a car, and you can put various engines into the car. You have various configuration of the car. You might have a 2-door, you might have a 4-door car, and different size engine. So the mRNA platform, consider that the chassis, and the engine is the engine that's going to take the car. If you want a car to race, you probably put a bigger engine. And if you want a car to go far, you probably put something that is more fuel efficient, etc. And so the mRNA platform is just that. It allows us to customize that platform for any virus. And because of that, it allows for speed, but specificity, which is why the vaccines are so safe, because they were developed specifically for the COVID virus. The other major development in the technology that allow us to build safe vaccine is the ability to do genetic sequencing. Before a few years ago, or a few decades ago, we didn't know, we couldn't even sequence the human genome, the DNA or RNA makeup was only sequenced a few decades ago. But that technology came so far that when we get a virus, we can actually see the DNA makeup of the virus, the RNA makeup of the virus. The COVID virus is an RNA virus. So what we did in order to build the mRNA vaccine is say, hey, we know how virus works. They inject the RNA into your body and they make other viruses, right? They inject it into the cell to make out other viruses. So to make the RNA vaccine, you said, well, older vaccines, either they would kill the virus and then inject it in you, for instance, like polio or so. Those were what you call attenuated viruses. And then they have other vaccines that where they will take out part of the virus and then inject that into you as a vaccine so your body can build that immune response that prepares your body so when the real thing comes, like when the virus comes, it already recognizes it. So our body, think of our immune system as an army that fights against anything that is not you. So if you your immune system is trained to recognize what makes you you. So anything foreign, it attacks that. Vaccines just prepare your immune system to attack foreign entities that comes into your body. The virus being one of it. But to do that, your body takes about 14 days to build up that army. So once it first recognizes a virus or so, your body takes about 14 days to build up that army to fight against it. The problem with COVID is that in that 14 days, it can kill you. Or it can make you so sick that the recovery is not possible. So the mRNA vaccines and all the other vaccines, what they're designed to do is basically show your body what COVID looks like, what the COVID virus looked like, and then your body start building that army. So when the real virus comes along, your body say, hey, I know you, you're not supposed to be in here, and you're ready to fight against it. So the mRNA vaccine, what they did, they say older vaccines use part of the virus, they use the dead virus, they use whatever to give your body that immune response. They say, hey, we can use mRNA, which is called messenger RNA, to instruct your body to create part of the virus. So your body would create this part of these little part of the virus. So it recognizes that, hey, this is foreign, right? So the spike protein on each one of the COVID viruses, you probably hear spike protein, spike protein, spike protein. The COVID virus has a spike protein that it uses to attach itself to your body cells, and then it inject the mRNA for the COVID virus into your cells, and your body produces more COVID virus. So they say, well, let's not make the entire virus. Let's just make a tiny part of it so your body can recognize that part. And if anything shows up with this part, so another doctor actually put it this way. If the virus, let's look at the virus wearing a uniform. And the uniform of the virus, let's say it's got a green hat, right?
Yes.
What they take the RNA and say, let's make just the green hat. So it doesn't have any, the spike protein doesn't have any issue. It doesn't do anything to your body. But what it does, it trains your body to recognize anybody that comes with this green hat is bad.
Got it.
Right? So the mRNA vaccines we are able to program or to create that piece of mRNA that will instruct your body to make replica of that spike protein. And then your body will say, well, this does not belong here. And then so it makes an army to attack anything that comes with that spike protein or anything that is wearing that green hat. And so the injections, the mRNA vaccines, you get them, you take about, let's say 6 to 8 weeks to build up full immunity. But because they're so specific to the spike protein on the COVID virus, they really don't do much to anything else in your body. Right? That's why so many people took them. And yes, there are there are some adverse events, but they are extremely rare. And as you can imagine, we all are unique individuals. Some of us can eat a ton of peanuts and nothing happen, and a kid can have one peanut, and next thing you know, they are in the emergency unit. One of the reasons why they choose the spike protein as the target to make the vaccine to react against the spike protein, because that was the least harmful part of the virus. It was also the part of the virus that is least likely to cause any other reaction in the body. The result of that is that we were able to develop vaccines that were 95% efficacious and have a safety profile where most of them had very rare side effects, meaning 1 in a million or farther than that. And so that's the mRNA vaccines. Now, in the mRNA vaccines, just to say what's in them, you have sugars, salts, and of course to protect the mRNA, because it's very fragile. It's in a lipid, which lipid is just a fancy name for fat or oil. It's in a lipid drop that protects it. That's why they are required to be under extreme temperatures, like minus 40 for the Moderna, up to minus 25 to minus 40 for Moderna, and up to minus 80 for Pfizer. That is so to protect the integrity of the mRNA, because they get damaged very easily when exposed to normal temperature for an extended period of time. So that's the mRNA vaccine. The vector vaccines, which include the AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Sputnik, and Sinopharm, this is the one that is available in Canada, was made in China. Those use hollowed out viral shell, meaning virus is basically a lipid shell with the everyday vaccine with the mRNA in it. So what they did in those vaccines that uses a vector, it's not a live virus. There's no live virus going into anyone. None of the COVID vaccine has live virus. What they did, they replaced these vaccines with the genetic material of a piece of the genetic material of the COVID vaccine. Mm-hmm. So it does the same thing, one of the COVID virus. So when you get that vaccine, all it does, it trigger an immune response so that your body would recognize the COVID virus when he sees it, and of course does what it does best, that is eliminate it from your body. I know that I went on a long spiel, but did that answer your question, or if you want to have a follow-up on that?
I think if I can just jump in here and just say very quickly, one of the things that it is a lot of information, but one of the things that came out that was very evident, because even I had a little bit of a question mark with regards to that, and I think a lot of people have actually said this to me, is that I don't know what they're putting into my body. So I think you're clarifying that this technique, if you want to call it, or process, is different from the old vaccine. I think that's an important distinction. I just want to make sure I kind of put that out there. Yeah. If we're not going to have anything, nefarious injected into our body or unknown, then I think that's an important distinction.
So I will, to just make it even clearer, one of the things that the vaccine manufacturers were aware of is the possibility that there would be some negativity around the vaccine, because, as you know, the misinformation started long before, right? And unlike other drugs that was developed and released, manufacturers were usually very guarded as to what they put into these vaccines, like what they put into products, not vaccines, but drugs. So because it's proprietary, right? But for the vaccines, you can actually get a full list of all the ingredients. I'll share the link at the end of this with Andrew, and he can, where you have the ingredients are public, it's available to the public. for each one of those vaccines. The full ingredients are available to the public with
Very
the
nice.
chemical name and everything. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, doctor. I know for a lot of people, people think, COVID is not real. It's just a little thing. You got a flu, you're gonna bounce back. Ms. Moseley, can you share your on-hand experience about what it was like experiencing COVID in your own home, please?
Well, I can say I have two family members, and I ended up being the caregiver. And so I had the front row seat to everything that was happening. As a matter of fact, my son said, and he shared this on Facebook, he said, listen, I would not recommend COVID to anyone. All right. Those were his exact words. And I'm saying that to say that having a front row seat, I can tell you that it's very much real. Back in, I think it might have been February of 2020, I went to North Carolina to celebrate my aunt's 70th. And one of my aunts came from New Jersey, drove down, and she is a nurse. And she was feeling quite ill. And she said, I hope this is not this COVID thing. I'm kind of sick, feeling a little tired out of it. Well, we were excited. We're family gathered together, and no one paid attention to anything. So, we were at my aunt's home, and the night we had our party, everybody had fun. I was coming back. I was at the airport, and I said to my husband, my throat is really not feeling good. And I am not one of those persons that take the flu shot ordinarily or get sick. We laugh at my husband because he would typically take the flu shot every year and get sick. and so we'd make fun of him. So by the time I got home that Monday morning, I couldn't get out of my bed whatsoever. Like I felt as though someone had taken a heavy, stick and beaten me to a pulp. And I couldn't get out of bed. And I literally about 11 something was able to drag myself enough to get my phone to tell work. By now you realize I'm not there, I'm not coming in. This was before, of course, just before everybody, it exploded. Mm-hmm. I use a lot of echinacea. Someone gave me to have like 10 milligram of echinacea morning, noon, and night. I don't know if it was COVID, but I'm telling you, I don't get ill. My husband could tell you that I was groaning from the aches in my bone, in my sleep, etc. So fast forward to this thing really hitting the fan, and I've got my son and his wife seriously, deathly ill. So for someone to say, or anyone to say that this is not real and that you just recover, that is such an insult to what I saw them go through. It's such an insult. My daughter-in-law, her hearing was affected. She had noise sensitivity, or her eyes were affected. She couldn't breathe properly. My son was basically turning her over in the night, and he was quite ill. He couldn't walk up the stairs. This is a guy who works out a lot, couldn't walk up the stairs without, the phlegm threatening to suffocate him. Mm-hmm. One of the hardest thing was just having to sit there and not be able to see them. My son was very adamant. He would be like, Mom, I'm not opening that door to take this food until I hear you climb those stairs. And as a mother, I just wanted to stand there. I wanted to see them. I literally was, and this is not to be dramatic. Mm-hmm. I literally would have nightmares thinking that I heard my son screaming that his wife is not breathing. Mm-hmm. You understand? And so this is why I get very passionate when people tell me, when they start from the premise, it's a little flu. Well, I beg to differ. I have seen flu, and I know it could be what it could be and what it could do. This was definitely not just a little flu. Mm. And it's very, and so it's very aggravating to have the discussion where people are dismissive about it. So that's on the one front with that, Andrew. But on the other front, I have, and I noticed something, you probably will come to Dr. Benjamin, where people talk about, people have said to me, well, I'm not taking the vaccine, which is another side of the coin, because they have rushed it to production, and how effective or, tried and tested could this have been? And I've said, and I will say again in this forum, that if we're in 2021 and we cannot rush the vaccine, I think that should be an issue, not the fact that we were able to get to a vaccine this quickly. So that was, that's my take.
Can I get the take this?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I think this is a good segue. You use the word rush, and that's the word that I hear a lot. Oh, the vaccine was rushed. There's two reasons why the vaccine was that fast. First is that, like I said, the platform on which the vaccine was built exists. They were working on it for over 25 years. So that's why it's a thing. If you have a chassis already built, you can take an engine out today and drop it in a few hours and you're ready to drive off, right? So let's see that. That's one reason why the vaccine was not rushed. To clarify the speed in which we got to the vaccine, I'm going to just talk about the process of getting approval for a vaccine. So vaccines go through a set of any drug, not just vaccine, go through a set of developmental phase before it actually gets to the patient. So the first phase after in the lab and doing, the genesis of the drug, it goes to preclinical trial. Preclinical trial is where where they will inject. It starts with mammals, so they might be lab rats, as they call them. It might be rats, it might be hamsters, and then it gets into primates like monkeys. So they use the macaques, monkeys, as part of the preclinical phase. This is just to ensure that there is no toxicity, that it's well tolerated, and also that it is doing what we intended to do, that it is triggering an immune response in those animals. Once that is done, a typical vaccine will then move into phase 1 trial. Phase 1 trial is usually about between 50 and 100 people, volunteers who are fully, you cannot use someone without informed consent. There are strict laws around the globe that mean that anyone involved in a clinical trial must consent to being involved in a clinical trial. Yes, they are paid to take part in these clinical trials. They know the risk. They're paid to do it, but that's phase 1. Phase 1 clinical trial is done in a very small group to check dosage size and to adjust that. Once that is done, based on the phase 1 results, and that's check, and these are all checks for safety, efficacy, meaning, is it safe? Is it working? Once that is done, they will check the phase 1 results and ensure that, hey, this is good. Let's move to phase 2. Phase 2 is a larger group. So phase 2 would include a couple hundred, usually around 150 to 500, depending on the vaccine. In this case, they always went with the upper limit because it's a pandemic. They could conduct trial in the US, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, in Japan, in China, in India. So they conduct phase 2 trial to check again to ensure the safety and the efficacy of the vaccine. Once that was done, they got a readout and they say, hey, we didn't get lots of adverse events. And these people who took the vaccine seem to have a response that would protect them from the virus. Then they go to phase 3 trial. The typical phase 3 trial for vaccine, like flu vaccine, which is used around the world, is about 10,000 individuals. So they will recruit people from around the world until you get to a sample size of about 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then based on the results of that, they will then move to the next phase, which is getting approval. In the case of the COVID vaccine, all of the phase 3 trials were 4 times the regular size. Instead of being between 5 and 10,000, the Moderna and Pfizer trials had over 40,000 people in them. And the reason why it was so large, because it's called randomized clinical trial. A randomized clinical trial is simple. Here it works. Half of the people got the vaccine, half of the people got a placebo. So In the end, you compare the two. Say, hey, the people who received the vaccine, 5 of them got COVID, and the people who didn't receive the vaccine, 40 of them got COVID. Let's say you just put a one, like say, let's say you do 100, right? But let's say you do, right? You check to see, well, okay, well, 40 of them got COVID who received the placebo. And so then you have a significant difference in the two populations. That result, then you also look at how many people got sick. Was there any untoward event, any adverse event, any sickness that you can associate to the vaccine? And all that information. So imagine having a database with 40,000 participants to compare the safety profile of the vaccine and the efficacy profile of the vaccine. Now, that information is what was taken, verified by outside experts, and that was taken to the governments of whatever country, the EU, MHRA in the UK, Health Canada in Canada, or the FDA in the US, to get the original emergency authorization. I'll talk a little about that because that was also an area of contention. Emergency authorization is something that is used all the time in the pharmaceutical industry. And here why it's used. For instance, if I'm testing a cancer drug, I'm just going to take a little segue here. If I'm testing a cancer drug on something that can cure, that treats lung cancer, and I have my clinical trials where 50% of you are getting the drug and 50% of you are getting a placebo. And in the people who are getting the treatment, I noticed that 80% of them are surviving, right? And in the people who are not getting the drug, they continue to die at a regular rate. It will be unethical for me to continue a trial when I'm seeing such great results on the other side. So what companies will do, they will apply to the government and say, hey, we have this drug. It's saving lives. We haven't completed the trial. We're about, we just have this information and we want to stop the recruitment and stop the trial and get emergency use authorization. And they get that all the time for breakthrough medication. These vaccines were indeed breakthrough medication because the efficacy was 95%. The normal flu vaccine, in some years, it's just around 50% efficacy. Most other vaccines range between 70 and 85% efficacy. The measles vaccine is about 98% efficacy, but that has been around for almost 40 years. So they worked and perfect that. So imagine developing vaccines that are within 95% efficacy on the first try. And why? Because we were able to do all these pre-work using technology to see what we're developing. And it's not that trial and error stuff where we give you something, wait to see and then come back, because we are able to model these vaccines so we know what would be the most positive or likely outcome. So when we do make the real thing, it's likely to perform just as it is and as it did in the lab per se.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll just jump to Mr. Jacob. Mr. Jacob, can you jump in there, please? I noticed you're buzzing to come through.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Doctor, for that. I think that was a good explanation. But I think one of the first things we can tell people, the reason why the vaccine was developed should be simple. It's money. I mean, the reason why the government give the companies money so that they can run the trial, because normally a company has to fund the trial on their own.
Yeah.
And that is what pushed the time, because they have to raise money. They got to come to the investors. They got to do stock split, etc., to raise money. So I remember saying that to people in the beginning of the when the data start rolling out from the vaccine, that people were saying, oh, it's being rushed. I'm like, no, it was being developed since the genome sequence occur. Messenger RNA is a byproduct of that. I
Yeah.
must add, Doc, I do think for information, we need to be fair that messenger RNA was developed for disease, not really for viruses. And they tried it on viruses and it's actually worked. The question is though,
Mhm.
it's not is it working, it's how long is it gonna last in
Okay.
terms of efficacy for viruses, because so far we are seeing the reason why there's the talk of the booster. And I remember saying to people, and for those who have joined us, I was forced to get this information as an investors in these companies and read all the way back from since genome sequence to see if this success will happen long term for my money. So when I looked at out of the genome sequence and messenger came up, that platform will change the world. It will cure everything you think about, including cancer, because of the precise nature of messenger mRNA vaccine. If you're in the space, you will know that. But the question is, when it comes over to viruses, because of the shifting and the mutating of viruses,
Good point.
messenger RNA has been running into trouble and is currently running into trouble. And that's something I'm saying this because one of my thing, and those who have joined us, I said it before when we were talking before, when I said to people, listen, the vaccine looks good, and they were cursing me out and telling me they're not going to take Trump unsafe vaccine. And most of the people who are taking it had some of those same sentiment. And I said, listen, when it's under Trump or whoever, the data looks good. They run me off of Facebook. I felt really small. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I also said to them, the only thing that I'm concerned about messenger RNA is that when you take it, be prepared to take your booster. Because if you're not prepared to take your booster shot, it's such a precise vaccine. When the virus mutated or add 2 spike protein to attach to your cell, you're going to have to take your booster. And don't be ignorant. And so that's my only concern with messenger RNA vaccine. Will it hold up? Or how many? And that's my question to you, Doc. How much booster are we going to have to take over time to get ahead of this virus?
So that's a great question. And the short answer is that I don't know. And the biggest unknown here is the prevalence of the virus within the population. Mutation, RNA virus mutate. The flu virus is a clear example of that. They change almost every year. So RNA virus by nature mutate, so they change. The problem with the fuel for mutation, it needs bodies. So the more unvaccinated people we have walking around, is the more the likelihood that we will get new mutants or new variants of the virus. So as long as we continue to have large swath of the population stay unvaccinated, this could be with us for a long time. And every time there is a new variant, it could be more benign or it could be 10 times worse. And based on, I looked at the list of the variants that they have right now. We have about 16 or between 16 and 18. And I could be wrong on that in terms, it might be higher than that. But there are 16 or 18 new variants of the COVID virus out there already. Some of them are looking very scary, and some of them are looking not so scary. And the reason we've now have data to show that the mutants or the variants, if we want to call them the variants, are all being developed in areas, they are coming from areas with low vaccination. India variant, which is the Delta variant, was developed, was first seen in India because they had widespread prevalence of the virus when they had their second or third wave. The other variant is coming from South Africa, where again low vaccination. The Lambda variant, which is the one on the horizon that is going to be is now rearing its head, is also it came from Peru, another country where there was widespread viral COVID infection. There is other variant coming from the UK. The Alpha variant, which is the one that devastated New York and so came from Italy, where again there was widespread thing. At that time, we didn't have a vaccine, but it's the same principle that area with low vaccination is where the variants are coming from. And the reason why I want to just make that clear is because there is also this thing out there that the vaccinated people are the one creating the variants, and that's not true. There is no scientific evidence to support that position.
Very good. Ryan, you wanted to jump in again?
I just want to jump in there. But I do think the opposite of that, Doc, is that there are people who are saying the unvaccinated are creating the variant. But I think I personally have said I will, and I'm waiting for Norvac vaccine. You probably know that company because it's a cell vaccine. I will not take a messenger RNA vaccine because it don't of the data is still out on the last, and we are seeing what's coming out of Israel. How long will it last? How much booster I'm going to need? They have not been able to answer that. So I have said I will go with DNA cell vaccine. Those vaccine that is more compatible to the human body, I think, and is showing the profile to be able to adjust. But my concern, Doc, is that some people are saying it's the unvaccinated that is creating the virus, the new mutation. And I don't believe that, because in Israel, if we have 90% of the people vaccinated, and they're dealing with the
they're dealing with the strain. The origin is from usually is from large in group with unvaccinated people. Once you have the mutated variant, it then affects vaccinated people, but it's not coming. The actual creation of the mutation is occurring in population. Is occurring in population. Yes, occurring in population with low vaccination rate. That's the point.
But I do think, according to some of the data came out this week, and from New York Times, etc., one of the things they are showing, though, Doc, is that messenger RNA is breaking down at such a rapid rate because it lost almost half of its efficacy in 6 months. If a virus is mutating between 3 to 6 months or whatever the number they have, it could be that the vaccine is not holding up in time before mutation is showing up. So I think we need to be balanced. I'm just no. Good point. I would like you to be balanced, because here's why. Let me finish this, because my contention with the government and my contention with even my doctor or other people who are not in the space to read certain things for themselves is the overconfidence in a vaccine and telling our people to drop their guards. Because when the CDC was announcing that fully vaccinated people don't have to do this and do that, I was screaming on top of my lungs and said, don't do it. Keep your discipline, because mutation is coming. And for these people to tell me, a normal guy who's reading, that they didn't know mutation was coming, when all the people was partying in Florida and dropping it like it's hot with no masks and everything because they think they're protected because they're vaccinated. Those are the concern I have, by to make us so put our confidence in something that might be breaking down where it can stop mutation.
So good point. So I'm going to make a statement here that could be controversial. Vaccines is just one part of the puzzle. It's the most significant part of the puzzle, which is just one part. If anyone in my family will tell you, if they asked me about the vaccine and they got the vaccine, I said, don't stop wearing your mask in public. Follow the same protocol that got you here before you got the vaccine. And if you continue to do that, then we can stop this virus in its track. So even when you look at the school reopening in Guyana, I am not for that, because there are two things that really put me in that I find is questionable. Is, first of all, I'm not sure that the schools are equipped to do the proper social distancing and have the current protocol and clear directions to the teacher as how they can conduct classes in a safe manner for the kids. The second thing is that we don't have a high enough vaccination rate among the adults and the kids to provide that cocoon for the kids that are lower than 12, that have no option of getting a vaccine. And what we've seen, based on early data coming out of the US, is that variants such as the Delta variant seem to have a very different attitudes towards kids. Right, we are seeing more kids are granted. Yes, a lot of the multitude of kids will come out of it without any major issue, but the number of kids getting sick is climbing. Also, I'll circle back to something that Michelle mentioned earlier about COVID. The endpoints for COVID is not just death. There is also the long haulers. Right? And I have seen studies where they claim as much as 50% of individuals who contracted COVID naturally would have long-term symptoms and long-term effects that possibly will follow you for the rest of your life after having the disease. So while I see people show, oh, well, 95% of you won't have any problems, you will survive, and it's just like the flu. No, that's not true. A much higher percentage would have long-term effect. And yesterday I was reading a study that came out to show that, especially for people of color, we already have problems with kidney. As you know, kidney disease is highly prevalent in people of color. COVID does a number on our kidney. So now they're seeing significantly higher negative effects of COVID on Black people, especially with kidney disease. So it accelerates kidney disease in Black people. So yes, while 90% of the people will survive it and not die, which is a very significant thing. You have half of them will have COVID. The effects of COVID for a very long time, up to a year or more, and some people for the rest of their lives due to the disease. So it's not to be played with. It's not something to be taken lightly.
Well, Doc. Michelle, you want to jump in quickly?
I just want to quickly say, because just two things. One, yes, Dr. Benjamin is quite correct. And I was listening to the CDC radio station one day, and they were interviewing a girl out in Toronto that had the COVID. And she used to be a runner. And she talked about not being able to walk from her bed to her bathroom without having to stop. Just to try to breathe and gasping for breath, etc. And she also mentioned that there is a COVID support group, so something like the Alcoholic Anonymous, where people get together, talk about they're officially called long haulers, talk about their conditions, etc., and try to have coping mechanisms. So yes, it is going to, you may survive it, you might not die, but you could have some very long standing. I can speak to my son and his wife. They don't seem to have any kind of long-standing issue, and it's quite possible that because of their diet, very, very rigidly active people. So that might be a factor. I don't know. But I want to go back to just one thing. I know we kind of we're kind of going for a little bit here, but I want to go back to one thing and ask you, because I'm very curious. We talk about the boosters. And Mr. Jacob brought that up with regards to having to take these boosters. But I wonder, is this new? I'm the layman here. I'm coming from the very layman perspective, because I remember when my kids were babies in Guyana, I think it was from mums or something. We did have to get booster shots. So I'm kind of curious about that part of it. what is this aspect of booster? How terrible is this having it? I don't know if it's terrible or if it's, I'm not too sure. I just want to be sure.
A good example of what booster is, the flu vaccine. You take it every year. And because the flu virus is an mRNA virus, it changes every year. So every year you get a vaccine to counter this strain of flu, which is a variant of flu that is present for that year. Because I'm not an epidemiologist, but because of the prevalence of COVID in the population, in the general population, I think that might possibly be the best outcome we can hope for right now. Because if a large portion of the population seem to bent on remaining unvaccinated, you will have flare-ups, you will have new variants, and you more than likely would have to continue to get booster shots. So it's not set in stone that might be it, but it's if you think of the flu vaccine, then it's the same principle. You get one every time there is a new threatening variant out there. And that's just my opinion of how it would be going forward.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I'm sorry, before you jump in there, I just want to ask two more things. And I've got to ask this for my Guyanese people as well. So because like I said, I mentioned to you guys before we started, this actual that it's been pointed out to me that it's good and well that we can talk having Pfizer and having Moderna, but they're just having Sputnik. And so if someone could talk to me about the Sputnik situation as to why this should be a fear factor or not.
So the Sputnik virus, I'm hoping that directed to me.
It is, Dr. Benjamin.
Okay. So
I have my opinion about that too.
Yeah, the Sputnik vaccine. The Sputnik vaccine is a very it's a touchy subject, and as time goes by, there are studies that are conducted that show that it's generally safe and it's efficacious. That said, I could understand, and I fully understand the hesitancy with the Sputnik vaccine. It came from Russia. It was produced in which is called the Gamaleya lab in Russia. The lab, that developed Sputnik is known for developing good vaccines. So it's not necessarily a bad vaccine. What is the issue with the Sputnik vaccine is because it's from Russia. First of all, for you to get approval in any country to use the vaccine, you need to apply to the regulatory authority of the vaccine. As far as I know, Russia have not sent their vaccines to the FDA to get approved, and they probably wouldn't, because why send your vaccine to a country that would not approve it? So that's political. That's a political ramification. Here in Canada, we didn't approve the thing because right now there are other vaccines on the horizon who are trying to get approved in Canada. But we already approved 4 vaccines. Moderna, and when I say approved, fully approved, not EUA approved, but full approval of 4 vaccines in Canada. Canada bought 450 million doses of vaccine. How many people we have in Canada? 36 million, 38 million, right?
Like 7 million, something like that, yeah.
Right. We already purchased or commit to purchasing 450 million doses. So that tells you, even if Sputnik come here, even if they apply here, the likelihood of them getting that accelerated review and all of that is virtually non-existent. So why bother? This leads to another point that is relevant. Russia has been known to be one of the spreader of misinformation. And the misinformation that they spread targets people of color and in these countries, especially in Africa and the Caribbean, because they want to create a market for their vaccine. So they took that little mystery about the mRNA because it's new and so on. They were also responsible for amplifying that misinformation. And it's
Amen, Doc.
Targeted towards our people. And this is something I've been saying and not getting much traction to, because the Facebook posting of all these anti-vax and so messaging, it's clearly coming from Russia as they try to create doubt among the Pfizer and the Modernas and the other vaccine so that they can establish markets, especially in Africa and the Caribbean, for the Sputnik vaccine. So there's so many things at play here that is driving the misinformation. I'll stop talking now.
Doctor, I think there's a need for you to come back again if or when you're available. We got so many questions, it's unreal. Got a very important question here, and then I'll jump to Robert next. Doctor, can you explain the viral vector process if you're able to?
Okay, I'm going to try to do it in layman's terms. So the viral vector process is they take a virus. We have millions of viruses in the thing. One of those viruses is the adenovirus. The same adenovirus, some of those are responsible for a common cold, right? So for a viral vector, what they do, they took an harmless virus like an adenovirus, and this is true for the Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca vaccine. And what they did, they took out the viral material, the material from inside of that virus, and all they use is the shell. So what they did, they took the shell, the real virus in, like they called it internal, and then put the COVID vaccine, the part of the virus that they want you the body to react into that viral shell, and that's in the vaccine. So it's not a live virus, it's just the shell, because the shell formed the protection for the vaccine material. And that is what's injected into you.
Very well explained. Robert, jump in whenever you're ready.
All right. Thanks for having me. Hi, Mom. I have two questions. So the first thing is, with all this information, our society doesn't really work with information. It comes from like a hearsay situation. So how are we going to get this information to the taxi driver, bus driver, boat driver that's there on the street, that doesn't have the time to go through the New York Times like Mr. Jacobs, or, do all this research? How do we get to them with two lines? If you take it, this is what it's going to be. If you don't take it, that's what it's going to be. Because they don't have I want to say the capacity, but they don't have the time to do all that research. That's one. And second question is, what's an acceptable percentage of non-vaccinated people? 5%, 10%, that would be okay. In terms of, like, you say you will never get 100% of the country vaccinated. But what's the percentage that you need to get up to that we could get things starting to get back to normal?
So that's a question for an epidemiologist. Thank you, Robert. So I'll answer the first one, the first question first, because that's easy. The thing about just how the misinformation is being spread, we need credible messengers. And we also need a robust strategy, communication strategy. As far as I know, I don't see one existing in Guyana, and even in other countries, the messaging is being butchered. So people don't know who to trust, what to trust, etc. And that's something that for us to have better uptake, we need to change that. And I'm lost as how we do that. We know what needs to change, but how to do it is still a challenge. And credible messages can be, pastors, it can be leaders within the country, etc. The unfortunate thing is that we do have a lot of religious leaders who have been indoctrinated with the misinformation, and they're formally spreading and confidently spreading misinformation. So how do you combat that? It's anybody's guess. I'm gonna leave that one. The second part is the question was, could you just repeat the second part? I just lose my train of thought.
I just want to know, what percentage are you going to get up to? Because we're never going to get 100%.
We're not going to get 100%. So this is one measure where more is better. And here in Canada, just to give you an example, here in Canada, we have we're about just under 80% vaccine, or mid 70 fully vaccine in the thing. And if you look at the spread of the Delta virus, even the variant, even though it's going up, if you were to compare that with what's happening in the US at 50, at 55, or just closer to 60% vaccine, you can see the difference that few percentage make in the thing. We are progressing at about 10 times less infections per population per 100,000. So it's even out than in the US. And that means that it's just a measure that more is better. If we can get to 90%, I think we can get better. If we can get to 95%, it will be better. So for herd immunity, which is what you're referring to, that number, I think, is going to be higher, because the more variants we get, is the harder it will be to get to that herd immunity. So it's going to be moving towards the higher percentage before we can see some reduction in spread.
Very good. Mr. Jacob, you can jump in whenever you're ready. I know you had some concern about the Sputnik.
Yeah, here, Robert, and for everyone out of Guyana, I've been screaming on top of my lung from the first day Sputnik was approved and was being sold. If you don't know by now, that vaccine rollout in Guyana is a racket. They bought it for $20-something with a whole lot of middle people getting paid, and the vaccine is only worth $8 to $10, whatever. You do the math. They're only pushing it because of the money that they're ciphering out of oil money into the vaccine, whatever they're getting the money from. That's a rocket, because Sputnik was tested on 40 people and Putin said it was good to go. And when we saw that in that space, nobody in America or anywhere around the globe, they have not made their data available for scrutiny. And so, I have said to people, do not take Sputnik V. And the true test of a vaccine is where it's been administered, is it working? Peru is throwing it out. All the Latin countries is getting rid of. They had protests in Peru that they're demanding that their government gets Pfizer and other vaccine. So the true test, when you look in the islands and other places where it's been rolled out, Sputnik has not even been working in Russia. So the point is, I'm saying no one should take Sputnik V. Last 2 weeks ago, China put out a statement that they're going to be buying vaccine from other people because their Sinopharm is not holding up, because they had to shut down Wuhan and some other places. So between those two vaccines, and that's why I told one of my friends, if you can get your hand on a Pfizer vaccine, do whatever, pull whatever string to get a Pfizer. Because at least I know you would be protected against the original strain and a little bit or whatever percent against the mutating strain. That's my take on that, I wanted to say.
I don't think we want to get in necessarily an argument, but I think, Ryan, the doctor said earlier that Sputnik is through his lens, is a decent vaccine, right?
Not, and I feel so let me qualify that. Sputnik data, he's right. Sputnik data is not, even though the ones they provide is being questioned. However, independent studies outside of Russia, they've looked at it, and the conclusion is that it seems safe. So when I say it seems safe and efficacious, right? It's not. So I am not in no way advocating for Sputnik. I'm just saying that it seems safe and efficacious. When this thing started, we were saying take the first vaccine that is available to you.
Right.
Right. Some countries, it might not be. They might not have the infrastructure to track and to ensure that these vaccines are efficacious and they're working properly. So the data might be spotty, and then always and conducting secondhand search studies there are always issues with that. But looking at the data coming out of areas where they've used Sputnik vaccines, more recent data has shown that it might be acceptable, and that's all I'm saying. So I don't want
okay, sorry, let me just ask this, because I've got to be a bit of a person here to jump in and throw this little bit up here. When we had the old big brouhaha with the AstraZeneca, right? I don't know if anybody could recall that. It was said to not be effective. It was said to cause the clotting, and it was said to have killed one person that I know of, and I'm not discounting the pain that person's family went through or anything like that. So I just want to ask, like, what do we do here in the case with Guyana, third world country? Whether or not they paid too much money for the vaccine, to me that's a separate issue. That's very political, and they're using the oil money. I get that. That's a separate issue. I'm not on board with that one by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever. What I'm on board with is having so many relatives in Guyana. How do they protect themselves? If what has been made available to the citizens of Guyana is Sputnik, then I am asking.
That's the thing. That's what I said on social media. I said Guyana has a strong case to make to protest, to say we don't want Sputnik. Right? That is, I'm on board with that. They can say that we don't want the Sputnik vaccine and put the pressure on the government to stop using Sputnik. I'm 100% aboard with that. What I'm not aboard with is that message getting hijacked and being a totally anti-vaccine messaging, which is the part that is killing us. Exactly. Is because the messengers have hijacked that real concern about a vaccine that is not WHO approved and could have been, but now because it's shrouded in this anti-vax messaging, then they can say, well, they're just against all vaccines. When if they're saying we don't want Sputnik, I don't see a sign that says we don't want Sputnik. Instead, I've seen my body, my choice. A lot of those, instead of saying don't give us we will get the vaccine if we get Sputnik. If we don't use Sputnik. The other thing I want to just touch on is the AstraZeneca vaccine. Now, you could understand the political ramifications of these vaccines because of all the misinformation. AstraZeneca vaccine is actually safe. Given the rarity of the blood clot and everything, it's safer than most things that you do than taking a minibus in Georgetown. You stand a much higher chance of dying on a trip from Linden to Georgetown in a minivan than taking the AstraZeneca vaccine. I rest my case. So
good discussion, good discussion, Docs. We got so many messages there. Someone wants you to just comment quickly on Johnson & Johnson, if you're able to.
So the Johnson & Johnson, again, was the same reason, it's the same issue with the AstraZeneca vaccine as blood clotting. And again, due to the political ramifications of that, and countries like the US and Canada having an abundance of vaccine, they can make a choice to say, you know what, we don't need to go through the trouble of people questioning this vaccine, even though the occurrence is very rare. We just go with the other vaccines that are less questionable. It's simple as that. So the occurrence of blood clot in the AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson vaccine is very low. I've seen occurrence is about a 1 per 100,000, and out of those 1 per 100,000, less than 80%, less than 20% of them might result in long-term or damage or death or damage or death. So it's pretty a tiny percentage of that. And if you were to compare it with COVID, which causes blood clot and causes tremendous blood clot, it's much higher, up to 10 to 40% of the people who have COVID have blood clot. As a matter of fact, blood clot caused by COVID is one of the main reasons why people die from the disease. because of embolism that it caused in the lung. So,
jump ahead, Mr. Jacob.
Yeah, well, from the very beginning of these rollout of the vaccine, I've been making a case for Johnson and Johnson, and I would tell anyone, because of Johnson and Johnson could have gone for more efficacy with 2 doses, but they went with 1 dose of the vaccine at 75% efficacy. The only reason Moderna got 95% is because they did 2. I spent all day on the independent review with epidemiologists from around the world. And when they asked them, why did you go for 2 doses instead of 1? If the threshold is 50% of a vaccine being successful, the only answer they give was because we only cater for 2. And in my estimation, that was not good enough. And Moderna and Pfizer vaccine has been given inflammation in the inflammation, and those vaccines also have had blood clot in certain places. There's even believe that messenger RNA vaccine is not only staying in the shoulder muscles, it may be moving to other parts of the body. That might be something we will deal with, we will see in the future. But if I was to take a vaccine, I told somebody, if my Norvax vaccine don't come out in time, I will take a Johnson & Johnson vaccine over messenger RNA. Why? Messenger RNA is more high efficacy, but there's no surety on how long it lasts. And that's why we are seeing the boosters in Israel.
So studies are coming out.
Yes. Studies are coming out, but the evidence from where it's been administered says you have to do boosters to get ahead. And I actually said in the past, one of the best way we're going to have to do it is get ahead with a booster before even all the trials is complete. And human beings, they don't really want to understand, doctor, that you may have to authorize something to do that to get ahead. But, you know, it's hard to argue, but I will make a push and tell people Johnson & Johnson vaccine, in my opinion, is more safer than messenger RNA vaccine.
And just let me say something. If what we found in Canada is that Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca and first dose, and then one of the messenger RNA vaccine second dose, had a tremendous impact on efficacy.
Yes, I will do that. That's true.
Right. So there is like I said, these vaccines they're a miracle. Really, they do what they're supposed to do in ways that we couldn't imagine 20 years ago. So that's
Do we have time for one more question, guys?
Go ahead,
Robert.
There was a program, I think, last night where there was an older gentleman that was fully vaccinated and died in Guyana from COVID.
Yeah.
What's your position, doctor, especially on pre-existing conditions?
So let's put this. Let me just put this out there. We have data in Canada that shows that vaccinated people, less than 1% of fully vaccinated people that have died from COVID. That means that if you look at death as the endpoint, the vaccines are 99% efficacious in preventing death, right? So that's it. It's simple as that. Like,
sorry, I guess you can't just look at the one person. That's a very small average.
It's a small thing, and I know that the anti-vax movement in Guyana has taken this and they're running with it, saying people die after receiving the vaccine. Now, if you look at it, this whole thing in its entirety, Canada has already we've given out almost 60 plus million doses of vaccine, right? If you give that much vaccines in the world, we're about 5.5 billion people have received the vaccine. People will die from all other things. The vaccine was never to make you immortal. It's simple. It's not to make you immortal. You can die from other issues if you receive the vaccine. If you had a pre-existing heart condition, you receive the vaccine, and then you get a slight dose of COVID or so, you can die because your body is not isolated. It's a system that everything is interconnected. So the vaccines, when we look at the data coming in, 88 to 90% of the people in hospital and dying are unvaccinated. The people who are fully vaccinated can get COVID, but they recover much quicker and the effects seem to be much smaller. The people who die after receiving full vaccination and a full coverage, it over between 0.8 and 1%. So that is in itself is phenomenal. You wear your seatbelt, you get into an accident, you might not survive, but you won't go into a car without wearing your seatbelt, would you?
Oh, I agree. I'm just looking at the messaging that coming from the Guyana side of it.
That's
because
but Robert,
I think if I can say one thing,
it's Sputnik, baby. It's if you think I said that months ago, if you think what Sputnik is going to prevent people from dying, we will see, because truth and time walk hand in hand. My point on it is clear. The messaging need to be clear that if you're fully vaccinated, no one can promise anyone that if you get sick from COVID, that you're not going to die. That was the messages that government was giving.
That's wrong.
That was unacceptable to say to people.
It is wrong.
Right, Doc?
It is
you
wrong.
Can't do that to humans, because if you
no.
get sick, it could trigger something that can kill you.
That's exactly.
And that's why all of our seniors in Guyana, I've been begging for the churches, get off your whatever you're on and
go get
protect
vaccinated.
and isolate your seniors until we get over this. Bring their food to them, beg them to stay out the market. There's other ways we could address this that has been totally not implemented, that is very heartbreaking.
And this is the other thing. You cannot put your entire COVID strategy on vaccines. To do that is just foolish. It's simple. You cannot put your entire COVID strategy on vaccines. You have vaccines, social distancing, masks, and all the other precautions that you can do to stop the spread. And vaccines is just one of the tier on the ladder. That's it.
Roger that.
Let me just say one thing, because I want to bring this back a bit to the whole Guyana. The content really is to just try to appeal to everyone in Guyana. Who are still on the fence, who doesn't want to take it, and I understand the hesitancy with regard to Sputnik, etc.
Yeah.
I think, however, and someone I can't remember if it's yourself, Mr. Jacob, or if it's Dr. Benjamin who mentioned this. The fight then needs to be different. Robert, the fight or the message that they're going to take to those guys in the street that don't have the time to do the reading for themselves or the research, the fight needs to be different. They need to tell people what we're fighting against. We're fighting against not enough data, not enough information on Sputnik.
Yes.
We're not anti-vaxxers.
And that's the message.
Two different things.
That's the message.
Exactly.
That's the message.
Absolutely.
I've been saying that for forever. That's the message. Make a strong case to get better vaccines.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, and then Doug, but who? I mean, are we forgetting that they give one dose of Sputnik, and then they change the timeline and say the vaccine maker now say you can get the second dose almost 4 months after, and it's going this long, and the vaccine second dose is not even showing up because the middleman don't run away with the money.
Yeah,
And
like I said, it's a mess. It's a mess. It's a
Think
mess.
about all of those
Mr.
people
Jacob,
who's been waiting on their second dose, even if it got a little efficacy in it. My goodness, this long to give people a second dose?
That's beside the point.
Mr. Jacob, that's the political side of it.
Yeah.
The people side of it, and there's still power within the people. Right now, the people are saying, I don't care if you lock me out. I'm not going to, I'm just going to stand out here and protest. I am saying, let's change the conversation and let's make it about what it really is. I don't want Sputnik.
That's it.
I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just don't want Sputnik. See, even sitting here in North America, the message I'm getting is that I don't want any needle. That's a different message from saying I don't want Sputnik. It's completely different.
All right, final question. We're just punching up against time here. Doctor, I don't know if you're able to answer this, but if you are, just let me know. Question is, how soon after getting the clearance from COVID vaccine, from the COVID virus, should you consider taking the vaccine?
That would be a message that would be up to you and your primary physician.
Okay, very good.
Make that call.
All right, good. I think we'll leave it there. We'll just do a quick run around again and we'll just close it off for today. Ms. Moseley, anything in closing?
And I'm just going to be reiterating. Please change your fight. I understand you want to say it's my body, my choice. And by the way, for Christians, that's a slippery slope. I'm not going to go down that road. That statement is a slippery slope, especially if you want to go out into the world and you want to be able to save or get people to jump on board. You don't want to be making such a statement. It's too broad and the message is lost. So what you need to do is to change the message, make it very direct, make it what it's about, so that you can get people on board.
Very nicely said. Mr. Jacob, anything in closing, please, sir?
Yes, sure. For someone who survived COVID, I didn't get to share it in the beginning. I went through COVID and my doctor actually told me I had a heart attack. And so, because I was dealing with the COVID symptom long after, and miraculously, it seemed like the Lord touched me after praying. And I'm so grateful because I went back and they told me that your heart look good now. Whatever happened, it happened. I want the people in Guyana to take it serious. Please. COVID is real. And I don't believe in forced vaccination, maximum education, but understand that we have the power to deal with this virus. Mismanaging of a virus is what we have been dealing with in America all the way through.
And the results.
And the results has been devastating to humanity. So please don't let's fight each other. Let's fight mismanagement, misinformation, and protect our people. Because at the end of the day, 80 to 90% of the people who are suffering is minorities, is our people. That's all. Thank you very much. Great job, Doc. Great job, Michelle. And thank you, Andrew, once again. And Robert, great question. I saw Sean, Sophia, Ben, Brian. Thank you very much for joining.
Very good. Robert, anything in closing? I know you're not available via your camera there, but any last word?
Yeah, I'm not looking as good as everybody today.
That's okay.
But this just highlights what healthcare system we have in Guyana. And I really wish that even post this, it's addressed, because we have a population that we don't have much records of underlying conditions, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we don't have a health card system. You know, if you don't tell the doctor you have an allergy, they wouldn't know. We need to really start to bring these things on stream. Just like how we did with the passport, where now everybody have a machine-readable passport.
And I think we'll just jump to our favorite doctor for the evening, Dr. Benjamin. Anything in closing, please?
I just thank you, Andrew. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this. I think it was a really great discussion. Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Robert, Sean, and Sophia. I don't know if you were able to get some questions in. My closing message is to Guyana again is I will just follow what Michelle said. Change the messaging. Change the messenger. Vaccines. The vaccines are working. It will help us. It will help us to get out of this. It's not the only thing. Continue to protect yourself. Wear your mask. Do your social distancing, and also reach out to credible people who can help you make that decision. This is a plea to people, the leaders in Guyana, some of them who are, I think, purposefully continuing to spread misinformation. this will only hurt, while it might seem like early victory in some of in this, while you might win some early victory, the ultimate result could be devastating for Guyana. Thank you.
Doc. Very well said. On behalf of everyone at the Let's Talk show, I want to take this opportunity to thank Michelle Moseley, Mr. Ryan Jacob, and of course, Dr. Benjamin. Dr. Benjamin, I look forward to having you again on the show. I think with all the questions and so on that we've had, there is a definite appetite for us to do this again. I think we're in a comfortable space. Ms. Moseley, if you're able to join us again, perhaps we can consider doing a Facebook Live, because I think the information that we discussed today is needed, and it will definitely make a difference in the life of some person somewhere that have access to this video. So once again, thanks everyone for joining. And again, I look forward to having a conversation again at another opportunity. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.